All right, hello, welcome to the Southbound Sports Show. I'm your host, Richie Leahy, here with my co-host, Maddie B, doing the full show on the podcast again. Typically, we do a little bit longer of a show on Patreon. You can go to patreon.com/Southbound Sports. This is the second time we did it in pretty close time frame, I guess, but this time it's not a celebration. Last time we celebrated Michigan's win over Ohio State. This time, kind of a shock. Mike Leach, legendary head coach, has passed away after suffering a cardiac event over the weekend. So we're using this show as a tribute to him. And I want to say, I feel like on the political side of things, he must have angered a lot of people because I see a lot of hate coming after him, and definitely undeserved. Because I think college football, I almost wonder if it's kind of like a baseball thing where a lot of the sports writers or even just casual people don't like him speaking out on things. But he's a funny dude. Wrote his own book on Pirates. So he had some football stuff. A big fan of Pirates. So just having someone that was not on the professional side of things all the time, I think college football needs that. And I really don't know who's going to step up and replace that right away. I think it's fitting that his last game would have been a win over Lane Kiffin in the Egg Bowl, just because I thought that rivalry with those two being outspoken in the media was just a great classic to have played on Thanksgiving. And two schools that typically people aren't going to watch, right? I mean, Mike Leach got railroaded early in his career as coach of Texas Tech.
Yeah.
So after that, he hasn't been able to land what I would call a quality job. I mean, no shot at Washington State or Mississippi State, but historically, both of those schools have overall losing records, right? So it's been tough for him to come in and prove his worth, but he's done it. He's won at Washington State. He had them relevant. I don't know if they finished. I had his stats brought up just because I was looking back through it. So he went as the first, I think he was offensive coordinator first. His real first big gig was at Kentucky in the 90s. I think it was Tim Crouch, wasn't it? Yep. And getting him drafted, and then going through and working with Bob Stoops at Oklahoma for a year before getting the Texas Tech job, and really starting off with the air raid stuff and taking it to the next level.
He was the line coach. I think Hal Mummy was still calling the plays at Kentucky.
He has him listed as the offensive coordinator, quarterback coach. So he was there for 2 years. So maybe, I don't know.
Well, initially he was the line coach, then probably progressed into OC, and definitely went with when Stoops left Florida for Oklahoma. He took Leach with him because he was pissed about how the offense worked at Kentucky.
And that's one of the things too. People when he went to Mississippi State, they were saying his offense wasn't going to work in the SEC. It already had. He had Kentucky putting up numbers, right? It's back in the golden era of the SEC with Florida fighting for national championships every year, and then Auburn and LSU and them. Really the start of SEC. Mike Leach was there for it, and he had success too. But he went to Oklahoma and had ties to coaches like Lincoln Riley and stuff like that, where he was pretty much the innovator of that offense and turned the entire Big 12 into a high-scoring affair, right? Isn't that fair to say?
Yeah.
He was the guy. He was a thorn in the side of teams like Oklahoma and Texas. The biggest one was the Crabtree game. Remember when he caught that pass on the sideline and broke the tackle? And I think they lost a 3-way tie, didn't they? Where they didn't get to play in the championship game. That was 2008, where they won the division, and then, of course, they get put in a lesser bowl game. So we all know now, bowl games don't matter. But that was the key year. They had 11 wins. It was one of like the best seasons in Texas Tech history. I want to say I looked it up. Do I still have it up? Because I didn't want to get this wrong. I was looking at like their conference championships. In the Big 12, they've never won one. And I know it's only been since like the 90s that they had a division championship. It's only been the one time. And they lost a tiebreaker to Oklahoma. I want to say it was like them, Texas, and Oklahoma all tied maybe. And the win against like Texas kept them out. Or maybe that they kicked them down by one more loss. I don't remember. But other than that, like Texas Tech's history has been all in like the 40s in like the border conference. They had 2 conference championships in the Southwest Conference. The second one was a 6-6 overall record. So like not good. They haven't been good in big time football. Mike Leach goes there, wins, consistently winning 8 and 9 games a year, has the 11-win season. ESPN railroads him. Like, let's be honest, ESPN is the reason he got fired from Texas Tech. Because Craig James was an analyst there, right?
Yeah.
I don't think he's there anymore. But
no.
His son played for Texas Tech, and the short side of it is, had a concussion. Mike Leach told him to watch practice from like their workout or like one of their on-field like facility containers or whatever the hell it is. I don't know. It's like a training tent, basically. And he like recorded a video on his cell phone of him saying he was like trapped in there. And so ESPN ran the video, didn't really fact check it. And they like his defense was like, look, we have protocols in place. Like Mike Leach is in charge of like the players, not like the doctor's side of thing, right? They push him out anyway. And honestly, since then, I've never cheered for Texas Tech in any sport. I think he was still fighting for pay to this day because they were trying to prove that they fired him with cause, but they never really could prove it, right? So he's still fighting it in court, like it never got really thrown out, I don't think. It just seemed like every summer it would come back up and he would like refile it and we'd never hear anything from it other than him tweeting about it. So I don't think they ever settled it. And it kept him out of football for 3 years. 2010 and 2011. And then finally he got an offer from Washington State, which they were dismal. They were bad. And he came in and led them. It took a while for them to rebuild, but I think his system takes like 3 or 4 years to get into really high gear. And they were able to win the Alamo Bowl. They won the division, the North Division in the Pac-10 or Pac-12. And they finished top 10, which to me, that's interesting because if you had the 12-team playoff, would they have been in? And that's the one thing where like coaches that aren't known for recruiting, he's at a smaller school. That's what I want the playoff expansion for. It's not so that the Ohio States and Michigans can get back in, every year, or like Alabama backing in again this year if it was a 12-team playoff. It's because I want more teams to get a chance. Like everyone keeps saying like, oh, so-and-so's team, if they make it, they're going to get blown out. With Mike Leach's offense, he was never really had a chance to like get blown out. Could they have been blown out? Yeah. Could they have pulled off some upsets? Also, yeah. So like that's a dangerous team where if you catch them on the wrong day, they could be just like Purdue, like the spoiler makers, same type of deal, right? You get a hot quarterback, and doesn't matter about the defense if you can't stop the offense. So that's what, he really transformed the Big 12 because he was there for a while, 9 years or 10 years, and then every offense, even the guys like Cliff Kingsbury, they basically put him in at Texas Tech to replace Mike Leach. Didn't really work out, and somehow he landed in the NFL. Now the Cardinals might scapegoat him. Did you see that?
No.
I don't know how. The offense is kind of a mess. Like, I don't know how you can say Kingsbury, like, 2 years ago, we loved you, right? Mike Leach disciple. Now it's like, oh, well, Hopkins is always suspended or something's going on with him, right? So you never have your star guy. And now Kyler Murray tore his ACL again. Or was it ACL before? Didn't he get hurt last year?
I think it was just like I don't even remember what it was, but he was banged up last year.
So I'm hoping it's
Ankle,
not
maybe.
a thing for him because his size is a big deal. Like, I remember it being talked about when he was drafted. Like, you can't be a small quarterback that's running around taking a ton of shots. Even a bigger guy like Russell Wilson, man, he took how many shots? Is he done now? Like, someone put a list of like all the quarterbacks he's doing worse than, and it was like included like Zach Wilson and people like that. And I thought, man, for the Broncos to pay, and they're like 4 more years of that. 4 more years of that, Matt. Who's going to want to take that off their hands and say, like, you know, the only piece we need is an old quarterback that can't really throw the ball. So, I mean, I don't know. I was hoping that, like, Mike Leach would have been around to have the expanded playoff. I really think he would have had a chance to get in. This year, Mississippi State was 8-4. His third year. They've increased every year. They're 4-7, 7-6, and now 8-4. Win the rivalry game. Looks like they've made up ground. He was in the headline, like, not even, was it a week before this? Because of one of the recruits throwing shade at him. I think I sent it to you. I'm going to look and see if I could find the quote. One of their players transferred. He said, in his message, he said, with that being said, since I am not very tough and Leach is glad I am leaving, I will be entering my name into the transfer portal. So, like, first off, I'd rather have a coach that's straight shooter like that, right? Like, why would you not? If you came in for a professional review at your job, would you want them to say, like, no, everything's great, like, you should probably look around, though. Like, what can I work on? Like, no, nothing. Or, like, would you rather have a guy that's like, no, you need to be tougher. But we'll be glad that you moved on. Like, isn't that just more of the truth? It seems like, do you want to get lied at? Because, like, where's another guy? I don't remember who it was, but, like, it dropped too many passes, and then he's, like, blaming it on, like, the system or whatever. It's like, buddy, if they're telling you dropped too many passes, take that as a hint. Like, that's an easy thing to correct, right? Like, hey, I'm dropped too many passes. Let's get the juggling machine out, and, like, let's work on my hands. Or, like, this guy, for whatever reason, like, I don't know why you'd want to go to your next job or your next team. Like, if I was a coach and I saw a player tweet that, like, I would not be reaching out. Because, like, what's the point of that? Is he going to be a team player? He obviously took it personal. So now he has to make that choice. Is he going to become tough and work through whatever he's doing, work harder, and take that next step? Or is he just going to pout and not get better and blame it on the coaches, right? Like, that's not the kind of player I want to bring in unless you know what player you're going to get in return. So I always like Mike Leach for straight shooting like that. And he's always been my favorite coach. I actually got a ton of text messages and stuff whenever he died, even from some old students of mine, which I appreciated because I thought that was kind of cool that they're like, yeah, I remember you telling stories about Mike Leach all the time in class. It's like, yeah, he's a great guy to have as, like, hey, I don't watch a lot of college football. Like, what's the team to check out? It's like, oh, you should watch this guy, Mike Leach, read about him, listen to some of his interviews, right? Like his fat little girlfriend's interview, which is always funny because another one, like, right? Telling the players, like, get their heads in the game, not focusing outside of, like, you know, a football whenever you're there, but doing it in a funny way that it kind of sticks. And I feel like just having that in college football is rare. I brought up Lane Kiffin, like, he's going to be one that's always going to, like, joke around and have that type of content. Maybe primetime, your boy Dion seems to be open like that. But there's not that many others out there. It seems like, and to me, I feel like I get a lot of people that are like, oh, college football, Mike Leach is too over the top. I don't know why you like that guy, blah, blah, blah. He needs to be more professional. But then the same exact people that are complaining about him not being professional are the same people that don't want to pay the athletes. Like, then why can't they be professional, you know? Like, if it's an amateur thing, why aren't the coaches are allowed to just go out there and, like, be themselves? right? I don't see why you can't have one without the other. You know, like why everything be professional to just watch the NFL then? They're pretty clear about like their image stuff that they try to do, but I don't get it, man. Definitely gonna miss him. I talked about it on the show. I used to stay up and watch Washington State games just because I like to watch his style of offense. And now that he's not there, it's like, not. Do I want to watch them? Maybe some of the same like concepts and stuff, but it's not the same. You got to watch the main guy, and I'm glad I watched a lot of his games. So I know football will be a little bit less of exciting plan for me going forward without Leach around.
Yeah, one of the things that I always thought was funny with him is that they're showing like the SEC media days during the pandemic. Like they did all the photo ops with the coaches in their mask. He like walks by Lane Kiffin and like pulls his off his face. Like I had testing today. We were doing some makeup keystone testing, and when I had finished up my testing session, I had the same situation where I had a bunch of messages that were like Leach passed. It was like it can't be a serious thing, and then you look and it was like confirmed he was passed. He'd passed, but I was trying to think of like was it Gary Patterson last night, or there was someone that like kind of announced it early and then realized that it wasn't. Like he hadn't passed yet last night.
Oh, I think Bill Snyder did that.
Yes.
We're talking about old coaches, man. It's crazy, you know.
Because he like put it out there and then had to backtrack. And it's like, oh, that's not a good look.
Well, I think they said that it might have been bad like Sunday night is when I heard. I think I texted you first that their insiders were already like calling the recruiting guys back, but they didn't want to announce anything because they were waiting on the family. And I guess he was non-responsive, so I guess they had to. I don't know if they had to make a decision. I don't want to speculate, but like they knew that there was a possibility of having bad news. But it seemed like the longer it went, the more hope like I had, you know, because like I honestly, I mean, you have guys like Jerry Kill that had like the seizures and stuff, and even hell, Mike Hart this year, early on the sideline for Michigan had like a seizure, but I don't remember like an active coach dying, like an active head coach. I don't know.
Well, and that kind of raised some eyebrows too when they were doing like some of the bowl lead up, and they had the defensive coordinator were there to sign the contract to participate.
Well, I think he had issues all year because he joked about he had a cough he couldn't get rid of. I think he had like pneumonia and stuff. But when they said it was like a cardiac issue, I was kind of surprised. Like if they knew he was sick, I'm surprised that like, I mean, I guess if it was like a widowmaker heart attack or something, I guess it doesn't really matter how many people are around, you know. Sometimes it's just you're not able to catch it fast enough. So,
yeah.
I don't know, but yeah, you're right. Like it just seemed like he was going down. I almost was expecting him. I kind of had thoughts that he might step away from coaching soon, and I was really hoping that he would like join game day or something to bring it back. Because like having a coach there to be like the next Lee Corso, I thought he would have been a great fit for that position as they're trying to do something. I mean, I know they've been bringing on like Pat McAfee, but just having someone that's like honest and able to like, you know, make jokes and take jokes, I think would have gone a long way to bring in some of that up. Or hell, even if like Fox would have brought him onto their show, I thought that would have been great. Him and like Urban Meyer, because you know he'd probably annoy the shit out of Urban every week. So very sad there that like you don't get to see that happen. And then like he's only 61 years old. Compared to that, like I brought up Bill Snyder, I think he's in his 80s. Nick Saban's up there. And it's like just to me shocking that it doesn't happen more just because of the age of some of these coaches and the stress. Right? Like I've seen like Joe Paterno and some other coaches, like when they leave, they go downhill fast. It's like almost like they know, like, yeah, I can't do this anymore physically, or maybe they just need it to keep them like alive. Something that drives them. I don't know.
Yeah.
But like I tried to look it up, and I really couldn't find a coach of like an active team preparing for a game that has like just surprisingly died. So maybe there has been. If there are, you can reach out and let me know. But this is the one that I was kind of like, I was still in disbelief, almost like it's like a bad dream. I don't know. They're playing in like the ReliaQuest Bowl or whatever, ReliaQuest maybe, against Illinois, and it just seems like surreal now. Which they did say that game's at Raymond James. I think they're playing in the Pirate Stadium. So they're going to play it for Leach, which I think he'd probably want that anyway. I don't think he'd want the team to not play,
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, like I said, I always liked watching him play. And now I'm like trying to think of like other coaches out there that I would have wanted to see in the expanded playoff. I think he would have been number one for me. I think Lane Kiffin maybe number two. Getting a chance to like, it really seems like their personality is not allowing them to get the top tier job, right? So they almost need the expanded playoff. Throw in Deion Sanders now too, where it seems like he was kind of miffed that he didn't get even considered for the Auburn job. And I know a lot of people were even asking us, like, why do you think Deion took the Colorado job? Now it's coming out that it seems like he might have had to take that. That might have been his only offer. And so these are the coaches where you're at a smaller school. I know Colorado's won a national championship recently, though. And recently is like in the last 30-something years. Because Georgia's was further before until last year. So Colorado's been more recent. Hell, they're even more recent than Penn State, I said. But having coaches like this, I think, separates college from the NFL. And so I hope that they succeed. And I'm hoping that the expanded playoff makes it worthwhile. Because back in the day, they could hang their hat and say, like, well, there's a bowl game on. Let's watch because you like so-and-so coach or so-and-so like offense or whatever. And now it seems like a lot of the coaches are just there. And they're just kind of like recruiting. And the offenses are all kind of the same. Like Mike Leach brings in the air raid to the Big 12. Next thing you know, they're like all running it. And they have no defense. And it's like the Wild West of like teams. And then TCU comes in and tries to be focused on defense. And then they've had success doing that. So it's almost like weird. And then whenever Texas and Oklahoma leave, I would only think that they're going to double down now and become even more air raid or offensive heavy teams, right? Because like once you can't recruit at that level, you're not going to start recruiting or like playing pro style football in the Big 12 whenever the two big dogs leave. Because like why would you? If you ever make the playoffs, you're just going to get thrashed. You'll be like a junior team playing like an SEC or Big Ten team that does that every week. So, I don't know. I'm looking through my notes here to see if I have anything else to talk about. Dude, he had 158 wins, only 107 losses. I think the lack of conference championships and stuff are just because of the teams he coached. He was never going to get the big job, like I said, because people wanted like a more professional coach. I honestly, he's the one coach that like at Michigan, whenever they tried to hire Harbaugh in like 2015, if that would have fell through, I really wish they would have given Mike Leach a shot. And then, of course, Harbaugh ended up coming, and that's worked out in the long term. But that would be the one where it was like he had a decent year at Washington State, and that same next year after Harbaugh was hired, Harbaugh's first year, Washington State went 9-4 with Mike Leach, and then the next year they were 8-5, 9-4, and then the 11-2 season. But that would have been the big one, 2018. So, let's see. He has 4 NCAA records at Kentucky, 42 SEC records, and 116 school records were broken when he was Kentucky's offensive coordinator, which seems like a hell of a lot, right? For only being there for like a year or two, to be breaking 116 school records and 42 SEC records just seems insane. So, rest in peace, Mike Leach, dude. Definitely be missed. I think
I'm hoping the NCAA changes the rules, because to go into the College Football Hall of Fame, you have to be at 60%, and he's at like 59.6 or 59.3. He was 3 wins away from getting to the 60% needed to qualify. And I think based off of his ability to turn teams around and the contributions in making the air raid a staple in the college football, where I think he definitely has a deserving place in the Hall of Fame, and hopefully that's something that they consider down the road.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know how many wins total they need, because sometimes there's like an asterisk to that. If it's 150, which maybe that's the NFL, but he's 158 right now, so maybe they would give him a little bit of a bump. I would love to see him there, just because of his impact on it. And then like I can just read his coaching tree. So Art Briles, Sonny Dykes, Ruffin McNeil, Dana Holgerson, Lincoln Riley, Dave Aranda, Cliff Kingsbury, Neil Brown, which is West Virginia's coach now, Josh Upel, Tennessee, Heupel. So, like, there you go, Matt. How many coaches currently that are held even in the Big 12? A decent amount, because Dykes is at TCU right now.
Yeah.
So, like, that's a hell of a coaching tree. And if Kingsbury gets fired from the NFL, you know he's getting another job somewhere. Like, I didn't think he was a good fit at Texas Tech. And I'm surprised he got the NFL job in the first place, but there's no way he's not going to get another one.
Yeah, I definitely think he'll rebound somewhere.
Yeah, I mean, and there were a couple of coaches that I didn't even name that are still like first-time coaches that who knows we'll probably hear of in a few years. But who do you think gets that job now? Do you think they just hire from within? It's kind of late in the cycle, don't you think?
Yeah, I would say it's late. I think maybe out of loyalty, depending on how well the defensive coordinator does, they may just strip the interim off, or maybe they bring back someone like Dan Mullen that had success. And
that'd be funny if they brought him back, because I want to say he would have had the best season in Mississippi State history, right?
Yeah, with Dak.
Yeah, I don't know what their record ended up being, though. I'm going to have to bring up the Winsipedia here for a second, because I knew that they were ranked high around week 8. Then they beat Bama, but then I thought they fell off because they didn't make the playoffs. So it's hard to know, like, hey, you can be remembered as a great coach and then Florida hires you. But let's see, they were 10-3 with Dan Mullen. Mike Leach was 8-4. So yeah, a good bit behind. Joe Moorhead went 8-5 in 2018. Oh, they did have an undefeated season, 10-0-1 in 1940. Which, did they claim a national championship? No. They only have one conference championship in their history. This doesn't tell me when on here. But, like, if you look at their Winsipedia, most of their things are like 43 or below in terms of power programs. And there's only, 60-something power programs? So they're down around, like, dangerous Indiana territory. Right? So no one's thinking like Mississippi State is going to be this powerhouse team. I just think like.
I also think that's one of the things that makes places like that special, is it his ability to go into those places, and Leach could take the undersized guys and do all this different stuff and be able to turn them into winning programs.
Yeah, even so much that it's like he raises expectations, right? Because the way his system works, like he has to get guys in, and like you said, it's similar to like Iowa with Kirk Ferentz, just with an actual offense instead of just a stifling defense and no offense, you know? It's like the polar opposite of Kirk Ferentz.
We're going to have to come back to that.
Because, like, well, think about it. Kirk Ferentz is the ultimate businessman, right? Doesn't like say anything wrong. He's like the pure NFL coach. Everyone talks about him for the NFL because they know like he's going to be the utmost professional. Meanwhile, like you said, Leach is always goofing around at press conferences and stuff. And then Ferentz' only defense. Offense absolutely sucks. If the offense is somewhat decent, they go like undefeated, you know. And then Mississippi State's, or like Mike Leach's mainly offense. If the defense is pretty good, then he has a good chance to be in contention for the conference championship. Iowa's a little bit better historically than where Leach has been, though. And I would have wondered, like, what if he would have ended up at like a school like Minnesota or something? Like, what if they would have taken a shot on him? Why not? Like, they could have actually taken that next step. I don't know if his system really would have worked in the cold Big Ten, but you never know. Brom had pretty decent success at Purdue.
That is true.
So, did you want to add on that?
I think you kind of you pretty much said it already. That I think it worked with some of those more cold weather places or warm weather places, but to really go to some of those Big Ten, like I don't think it gets nearly as cold in Washington as.
Well, I didn't think it was going to work at Washington State, Matt. I was staying up because they were in thrilling wins over like Oregon State and other crappy teams. Like I just figured I'm watching a good version of bad football, right? And then next thing you know, they're like in contention and they're winning 10 games, and it's almost like they're not even anywhere close to recruiting on the level of teams that they're beating. Like, you have USC, Oregon in that conference, Washington. You're the little brother, and you're winning. So at some point, like, that's what, like you said, I think the college football, if they want to do a real Hall of Fame, which I know I bitch about the baseball one all the time, but if they want to do a real one, you should focus on having the Hall of Fame include coaches from some of these smaller schools, right? And I think Mike Leach is going to be one of the ones at the top of that list. A lot of coaches start at the smaller school, end up at a bigger school, and then they're most likely going to be associated with the bigger school, right?
Yeah.
Like you're not going to be associated with where you came up. Like Brian Kelly's not going in as Cincinnati's head coach, right? If he makes it, he's either going to go in at Notre Dame or LSU. That's just a fact. You don't win as much and say, like, well, that's Cincinnati's coach right there in the Hall of Fame. Or, like, hell, like if Luke Fickell rips off a bunch of Big Ten championships and a national championship at Wisconsin, he's not going to remember fondly of that one playoff appearance at Cincinnati. Right? Cincinnati might claim those two dudes, but they're not the premier Hall of Fame coach from that school because they jumped to bigger ones at the first chance. I guess Fickell, maybe the third chance. I'm still surprised that, like, he took that job after waiting for, like, Ohio State or Notre Dame for so long to just go to Wisconsin. Seems like a risk to me. Let's see what else. Oh, speaking of coaching, Jeff Brom, dude, switching. I mentioned him earlier. He jumped all the way to Louisville. What do you think of that, moving to the ACC?
I thought it was a pretty good move for him because sometimes you make it so far and then you just kind of flatline. I think sometimes a change of scenery is good for a coach.
I feel like he had Purdue competing at a high level. I looked it up, and it wasn't as high as I initially remembered. And then, like, of course, he plays Michigan and it's semi-tough in the championship game and just doesn't have the horses. It feels like Purdue wasn't going to give him those horses, even with NIL. So go to Louisville where they're really trying to win, and they might get you some guys. And then, I mean, that's where he played, wasn't it? So I feel like that's his best chance. Like, that's his landing spot. Where if some coach is going to take him in, he's effectively their Jim Harbaugh, right? You give him 7-8 years and you see what he can build. Could end up being a Scott Frost, but I think like the Harbaugh mold where he was successful in a big conference. I feel like he has a chance to turn Louisville into something special. Because they need it, right?
Yeah.
The ACC needs extra teams getting in. So why not have him give a chance? Aren't they in the coast? Or they're in the Atlantic, aren't they?
Yep.
Go to North-South. Get them in the division with Pitt and them. Like, there's no need for them to be in the Atlantic with Clemson and Florida State, right? Especially because a lot of the teams in the Coastal don't seem to want to compete. Like, at least the Big Ten looked at their divisions with legends and leaders and said, well, this is dumb. Like, we tried to do the even thing, and we realized you should just have unbalanced. And now look how good it's worked out for them. 2 teams from the East in the playoffs this year. Clemson and Florida State have been there, both from the Atlantic. Get some teams that want to compete and put them in like the North Division. I think it would work out for everyone. I honestly think it would.
I say burn them all.
Have no conference?
No, just I'm not an SEC homer. I'm not a conference homer. I just want my team to win.
Well, it's embarrassing seeing fans from other schools come up and they're like, well, the Big Ten has a great chance. It's like, I don't want Ohio State to win. What are you talking about? Like, I'm not going to cheer for Georgia either way. You know, I want whatever's best for Michigan. But I've heard some fans down here be like, I'm a Florida fan. Can't wait till Georgia stomps Ohio State and Michigan. It's like, why? Why do you want Georgia to win another national championship? Wouldn't that hurt you? Like, isn't that directly impacting Florida's team? Because now, as like a Florida recruit there, you're going to say, oh, I can go to the hometown school, or I can look down the road and see like what Florida State's building, or I can go to Georgia. Like, I think Florida Gators would be third on the list now. Right?
It should be.
Like, why would you look around and say, like, one program's building, Florida's kind of a mess, you're not really sure with the new coach, they had a spark, they beat Utah, didn't capitalize on that, got kind of worse down the stretch. Why would anyone pick them over Georgia? And then yet their fans are just cheering for Georgia to beat Ohio State and Michigan. It's like weird. But I do agree that it would be a bad look if Georgia stomps Ohio State and Michigan, but I don't even know how much of a bad look because the SEC couldn't compete with Georgia either. So at some point, you're just the best team. Like, no one looks back at that USC team with, like, Leinart and Bush in them and says, wow, the rest of the Pac-12 really sucked. No, they just say, like, wow, USC was really good, right? I think you looking back, you're going to say, wow, these 2 Georgia teams are really good. With did you watch the Heisman?
No.
I didn't watch it either. I see a lot of people complaining that it was all quarterbacks, but do they not remember Hutchinson in it last year? Which I think if Hutchinson would have won last year, maybe this year would be a little bit better. Because didn't they go quarterback last year? Was it Bryce Young?
It's been quarterback for a while.
Since my boy Derrick Henry, right? Or no, Devonta Smith. Also my fantasy boy. I guess I only draft Heismans that aren't quarterbacks. Or wait, did Trevor Lawrence win one? Because I did draft him too. Maybe I do just draft all Heisman guys. Or no, he's been snubbed, wasn't he? I don't remember him from the commercials, so maybe Trevor Lawrence didn't win it.
Maybe he's too busy recovering from getting kicked by Urban Meyer.
Which, Matt, I had someone ask if the Heisman house was real. They wanted to know if there was like a place where Heisman winners would go and actually hang out with mascots. I said, yeah. Believe it.
It's at Nissan headquarters.
You just go there and they're all like driving each other to the next game. Like Baker Mayfield, which I still feel like Baker got the short end of the stick because Deshaun Watson is not doing any good in the NFL, right?
Are you surprised by that?
No. Like, I feel like Baker, out of all Lincoln Riley's quarterbacks that have... Wait, was he the guy that won the Heisman with him? Or no, wasn't it Kyler Murray? I can't remember. I can't keep track. Was Baker his? They said he had 3 Heisman winners.
Yes.
Was it Baker, Kyler Murray, and now Caleb Williams?
Yes.
Which, I think the controversy on Caleb Williams is like his fingernails, right? Where he writes like, fuck the other team on them. Like, fuck Utah. Which to me seems dumb, right? Like, why would you give them extra ammo and you lost to them twice? I also think that if the same coach is winning Heisman with multiple quarterbacks, putting up fluff numbers and not winning anything, you're probably a system coach, right? You can't say... I heard that, like, I know Blake Corum getting hurt Michigan's chances at running back, and I thought Hooker getting hurt the same week hurt his chances, because it was a 2-player race, right? If Hooker and Corum don't get hurt, one of them probably wins it. After Hooker got hurt, and then Corum got hurt, I texted you and said Corum just lost the Heisman. And then people said that Donovan Edwards going off the last 2 games shows that Corum really wasn't that good. But I'm like, can't both be true? Can't you just have 2 good running backs? Like, it's the first time like Michigan's ever followed up, at least in my recent memory, a great player that gets injured with a 5-star recruit, right? That like happens to teams like Georgia and Alabama recently, but not Michigan till now. So I don't think that should take the Heisman away from a guy. His stats are still higher than some of the other Heisman running back winners. So I think he should have at least been invited. Inviting like Stetson Bennett just because like he's 30 years old and Georgia's undefeated, like invite someone else from their team. Who was their guy last year, their defensive end? Walker, didn't he go number 1? Like, do they not have another guy like that's dominant that could have been invited? I don't see the focus on...
But I think so much of that boils down to the voters not really knowing much of the players. So, like, it's easy to just pick the best quarterbacks of the best teams and just kind of be lazy with your picks instead of looking for some of those guys that are deserving.
Oh, it's 100% they don't watch the games. Right? I mean, that's exactly what it is. It's like, oh, so-and-so game was really close, but in reality, like, it wasn't. Or, like, vice versa. I saw a lot of writers just saying, like, Northwestern wasn't in that Ohio State game when that's the opposite was true. Northwestern was hanging around with them, and I think that should have been a big red flag to fans that thought that Ohio State was going to be tougher this year and was able to extend an attack like Michigan's when Northwestern does the same exact crap. Northwestern and Michigan is like watching paint dry, right? So, like, if Northwestern's slowing you down as an Ohio State fan, like, you should have been worried from that game. I know they blame the weather, but, like, okay, how many excuses do you need? Last year it was the weather, the flu. This year it was like the weather, the cold or whatever. I don't even know what the hell the Michigan excuse was. Big plays. Yeah, too many big plays. That was just an anomaly is what ESPN said. But if Georgia comes out and is throwing 80-yard bombs, what's the issue then? That's why, going back to the Mike Leach thing, I said Ryan Day is like a light version of Mike Leach. Because Leach made adjustments. Ryan Day just kept dinking and dunking the entire game. Every time they're in a big game, I watch him coach. I keep waiting for them to do something. Right? They never do. They never like make the adjustment and say like, all right, here's where we're really going to win the game. It's like, all right, here's where we just keep doing what we're doing and hoping that our big 5-star athletes take over. When a team's matched up with them evenly, I would not have faith in a coach like that. It's like, I don't even know who's Florida's coach before Urban. Ron Zook was it like the Zook? They're just there, and then they're like, "Oh, here's where we lose the game." Right? All right, that's what I'm waiting for. So I don't know. That's what I'm like. Getting ready for the bowl games. I don't know how you can be excited. Did you watch the Army-Navy game last week?
You know it.
And then that guy got fired right after?
Yes.
Where I thought it was like, as a military academy, you would think that they'd be more stern. But it was like the weakest firing I've ever heard. Where he walked in and told the head coach, "We think you should take some time off." Like, we think that? Like, who thinks that? And then they finally were like, "Yeah, we're letting you go." Like, why are you beating around the bush? Just fire the guy. He's sitting in the locker room after the loss. You didn't even wait. It's like embarrassing. So I also don't know why can't they pass the ball at all? Like, they're worse than high school teams. If any of them teams could put in a passing wrinkle at all, even hitting 50% of passes, then you'll go for it.
That's asking a lot.
Yeah, that Matt. All you need is, okay. So like, let's look at this. You get the handoff, right? Turn around, fake it. You only need to hit a 5-yard pass, right? Because they all have their assignments. Most likely, your tight end or whatever is going to be in a one-on-one spot, right? So, throw the ball up. Like, didn't Georgia Tech have success with Megatron? And they had someone else, too. Was it Demaryius Thomas?
Yeah.
All you need is one guy. I think they won the ACC that one of those years, didn't they?
Yeah, they're an ACC champion.
I want to say it was like the Kirk Ferentz years where Kirk Ferentz ran all over them in the Orange Bowl, maybe? And it was like, shouldn't Georgia Tech know how to stop the run? Isn't that all they do? It's like, oh man, I remember that game. I think it was 2011 Orange Bowl. Look it up. But that's what I watched that game, and I thought, if Army and Navy had some type of passing, they could take the next step and be a legit team. But, and with the new system, do you think they're going to be left behind forever?
I don't know. I think it just depends on who they're able to get, because you have to be able to find someone that can match the athletes that they're recruiting at the academies. I mean, they've shown that if they use the option as a foundation for their offenses, it plays well. So maybe you find someone, but I think what's happening in college football is that they're changing some of the cut rules that really made the triple option a more viable offense. And now, like, teams are starting to get more and more away from it. Like, a couple years ago, you really would have seen a very, very, like, basic triple option style from both teams, and now they're starting to use some different formations and stuff to get out of some different looks because of penalties for chop blocking and cutting downfield and things like that.
Yeah, if you watch film from even like 5 years ago, they were definitely giving different looks, but it's almost like Pep Hamilton when he was at Michigan. Yeah, there are different formations, but you're running the same shit. So, like, they know you're running up the middle. Like, why are you shifting all these guys around just to do the same option move? That's where, like, they have to evolve to doing something else. Like, there has to be more running quarterbacks that can throw the ball at least halfway decent. I mean, honestly, all you have to do is practice taking the step, getting that guy in single coverage, and throwing a fade, and doing it like, what, 30 times a game? Not even 30 times. 15 times a game. Because they're passing like 4 or 5 times. And And the passes are always horrendous because they're out of sync, right? And sure, like a big time program is going to have a guy that's used to defending the fade, but the other schools aren't. And that's where I'm kind of worried because like they're independent, aren't they? Like our Army is still, I think. So like there's really no path for them going forward if they have a great season to make the playoffs. They almost have to go undefeated. And what was it? The 10-win season a couple years ago when they played Michigan in like that absolute frustrating, boring game, like week 1 or 2. Was that 2016 when Michigan had a great team? Like that's an Army team that could have went to the playoffs, but I honestly still think with the way it is expanded to 12, you're not able to make that jump. I wish they would have went, or heck, I still wish they would do an early play-in to allow the other conferences to have a chance for an automatic bid, like a 14 team or something, just to give the other 2 conferences a chance and maybe force Notre Dame into a conference, which would make things easier going forward.
Yeah, rub a lamp though.
What, to get them in?
Yeah.
Well, I did forget to bring this up a while ago, and I know this is kind of like a college football show right now, but the Big 12 agreed to their new TV deal. It's 6 years. It's with ESPN and Fox, and it includes a pay bump for schools, but it's nowhere near what they would have gotten. Like, I think they're going to go ahead and get up to $30 million per school. So that's for all 12, including BYU, UCF, Cincinnati, and Houston, which I think a big chunk of that is probably from BYU, just because BYU, I know a lot of people shit on them. They have a nationwide audience that watches a lot of their other sports.
All right, now I'm going to ask you a question. I don't know the answer to this. With the transfer portal and all the other stuff going on, if a player from outside of BYU were to transfer in, does that then mean that they're responsible to do their mission work, like before they can play football?
Are you thinking Stetson Bennett will get a grad transfer there?
Well, I was thinking, like, I saw, I forget, something came up with BYU, and then as I was thinking about the transfer portal, people coming in and out, like, that'd be crazy that you're already like a junior or something, and you're like, I want to go to BYU, and they're like, oh, hold on a sec. You're not going to start football right now. You're not 35.
I don't think all of them have to take the missions. I'm trying to look it up right now. And does that count as their red shirt, or they still get a red shirt too?
I would think because it's something religious, I'm sure they're going to get some kind of reprieve for it.
Well, I think it's just kind of like a deferred enrollment, and then they would still get their redshirt year because they're not doing football-related activities. And now with the new things, I mean, theoretically, they're 18, 19 coming in. They take a redshirt year, they're 20 years old. So they're going to be 21 when they start for 4 years. They'll be 25 when they're a senior. Like, that's how they have success. It's not really a secret. They're letting boys become men. And then they're like... So I'm looking. I don't know how many people they have on their roster, but the new class came in. There are 18 people that are serving missions. And the class is 25? And so that's over 2 years. So 18 out of 50 is what percent? Because they're not going to make every player serve a mission because, like, they still need to compete with college. I think they know how important it is to have successful sports programs. So it looks like students can attend without serving the mission, but it looks like they recommend if they're from their church, like the Mormon church, then they are. but it's more of a church requirement, not a school requirement.
Oh, okay.
So that's interesting. A little bit of reading there during the show. I hope I was talking. I don't know.
Well, and the other with the NCAA stuff, Jamie Chadwell became the head coach at Liberty. Went from Coastal to Liberty.
Which I was surprised. A lot of early rumors had him going to USF. Obviously, Liberty's the better program. And going forward is in the better position, right? I've been talking about them for a while now because they're the one team that I think is going to be a team to look out for. Now, are they joining a conference, do you know?
I wanted to say yes, but
you don't know now.
I'm not. I don't want to speak out of place.
Because the only reason I'm looking at it is, okay, now you have however many spots for the playoffs. If you win a conference, you still have to be ranked higher.
Well, they're Conference USA. They'll be Conference USA for the 23 season.
For football.
They've been independent, yeah.
So I'm looking up the stats right now because I'm wondering, is there a Conference USA team that they're replacing?
They just expanded.
Well, that's what I'm wondering is if that's going to happen to the smaller ones. Yeah, because they're not losing anybody. So Charlotte's in that division with Biff Poggi, though. That'll be a good one to watch. And wasn't Taggart at FAU?
He was. So was Lane Kiffin.
Yeah, I knew Lane was there. Isn't Taggart going to Colorado, or did they not finalize that yet?
There was some speculation he might go to Miami.
I hope he goes to Michigan as an analyst. Him and David Shaw, get all the guys back together. And then they can have an old coaches committee to rival Nick Saban's. Right? He hired McElwain, your boy, the Shark. He was at Michigan for a bit. He rehabbed. Now he's at one of the other Michigan schools as a head coach, I think. Unless he got fired and I wasn't aware of it. I was thinking that Liberty was joining the MAC for some reason. But Conference USA right now doesn't have divisions. So I'm guessing they're coming in to expand to get divisions.
Come in, just straight up win.
Well, it makes sense for the smaller conferences to have a conference championship game. And then, like I said, I wouldn't be surprised if they kind of got together and had their own pre-playoff tournament, right? Because this is conspiracy me. The committee's taking 6 teams, right? 6 conference champions, automatic bids. What if outside of the playoff, the AAC, I'm scrolling through to make sure I don't miss anyone, Conference USA, the MAC, Mountain West, Sun Belt, that's 5 conferences. So it's not an even number. If they were able to consolidate to 4, they could have their own 2-game tournament to see who makes the playoff. And like I would watch that, right? I'd rather watch that than a bowl game that doesn't mean anything. Could you imagine if you were the team going to play them? Because like the first 4 teams get a bid, right? Or a bye. So which team made the playoffs? It would have been TCU, right? They're ahead of Ohio State, so TCU would be watching this play-in tournament to see who they would get to play. Like, wouldn't you be rooting for like James Madison Dukes at 8-3? Like, come on, boy, get us a team that's a little bit weaker we could beat up on. And then, is it better to lose your conference championship game to get that early, easy win on campus for recruiting? There's a whole other game to it, gamesmanship. That's what I'm wondering. You're laughing, but I'm telling you, some of these, like, the AAC is losing UCF, Cincinnati, and Houston, right? They're losing 3 teams they're going to expand from somewhere. Eventually, the expansion has to stop because there's not going to be that many more teams coming in. Right? That's the one thing, too, that I'm wondering about. Like, with a lot of people are giving Deion Sanders flack about leaving, like, the HBCUs, right? The historically black colleges. Why doesn't someone step up? And I don't see why the NCAA would block this, but why not then someone step up and help fund them to join the FBS level? Right? Because right now, Deion Sanders, the knock on him is like, well, he's abandoning them. He was undefeated this year. Everyone was talking trash on him, saying he's only winning because he has the better players in this division. So for him to really be respected as a coach, he has to come to the FBS level. It's not like he was at Cincinnati while they're like and making the playoffs as a non-Power 5, right? And then jumping to Wisconsin. Like, that's not what Deion did at all. He was a lower division. He's in the FCS, right? Yeah. So they're in the FCS, so he's jumping to the FBS. I don't understand why. Why do you need the two separate divisions? Maybe because there are so many schools. Why not have someone endow them and have them joining the big FBS and now just have 4 divisions, right? Have the rest of them be Division 2. I know that they want to stay Division 1 AA for college basketball, right? Because anyone that's in Division 1 AA can qualify for the NCAA basketball tournament, I believe. That's why they keep that distinction. But don't say one thing for football. I don't know how many there are. Aren't they all in the ASUN, or are there different conferences? No, I guess the Big South has some too. But I don't understand why, if the school wants to compete at that level for football, why not come to Division 1A and build your own conference, right?
Yeah, I don't know.
In 50 years, what if that conference was better than the SEC? Wouldn't that be funny? Right? I mean, if you can attract coaches like Deion Sanders and some other guys that are big, and you're playing on the top level, then yeah, Deion leaving would be a crushing blow, right? But the way it stands right now, I don't fault him at all.
But I almost think, like, when you look at situations like the way Deion's bouncing to Colorado, and it's almost, I would think, comparable in some ways to the way Lane Kiffin has kind of bounced himself around too. And he's made it known he wanted to move up and was looking to get to some of those better jobs. And there's nothing wrong with that, but I think where Deion had run into some issues was that he was running everything through the frame of, I'm going to be here for the long haul, and then pieced out at the first opportunity to move up.
Yeah, but I don't think that's true at all. He's been there for 3 years. But like I said, Lane left Tennessee to go to USC. I mean, and honestly, that could be a parallel move, right? I know Tennessee is not considered at the level of USC, but it's not like he was at an FCS school, which is the point I'm making. He was an offensive coordinator and a head coach at like these prep schools. Deion was. So he's at prep school. Of course, Jackson State is going to offer him, and he's going to take it and talk about being there for the long haul, because if you don't do that, you're not going to get recruits, right? So you have to talk like that. Like every coach talks like that. So then my next thing is like, now he's at Colorado. Now if he leaves Colorado in 3 years, then he takes a job at like SMU or something, then I'd be like, well, this is a head scratcher. What the hell is he doing? Now, if he takes a job in 3 years at, say, Texas, okay, well, now we're on to something, right? Like, he's just moving up the chain.
Yeah.
How's that different than what Steve Sarkisian did? I mean, didn't he get fired along the way? But wasn't he at Washington? And then he jumped to USC?
Yeah.
And no one called him out, right? I'm looking to see how many years he was at each spot.
But I think Dion, like, because he has all the extra cameras and stuff on him and filming,
well, right?
Like, he's bringing more attention to it. It's gonna come off differently than some of these guys that are doing the same things but keeping a low profile with.
You know what he's bringing? Jealousy. These other dudes are just jealous of him. They want the attention because look at the recruits he's getting. He just had a flip. Like, Michigan was trying to flip this guy from Nebraska, and he just canceled to go to Colorado for a visit instead. I guarantee Nebraska's losing him, right?
Yeah.
Like, if your choices are Michigan or Colorado right now, or Nebraska with the new head coach, like, nothing against their new regime, but you're probably going to go primetime, right?
Yeah.
If you didn't go to Michigan in the first place, what has changed over the past year? Nothing. Michigan's back in the playoffs. If that wasn't enough to get you to commit, if primetime's going to be the other option, I would think these kids are going to go to primetime. Maybe not. Maybe you're not buying in. But for people saying, like, oh, he's not going to have as more talent than anyone. Yeah, he is most of the time. Like, if he's recruiting a top 10 class, you know how many top 10 classes are in the Pac-12 right now? Isn't it only one? Or no, maybe two with Oregon, right? It'd be USC and Oregon.
Probably USC's probably up there.
So the team talent composite right now, Oregon 7, USC is 11. So let's see what else. I'm trying to see who else. Washington would be 20. If he can get Colorado to recruit in the top 20 range, he's already in the top 3 in the conference, right? Unless I'm missing someone. And guess what? USC is leaving. So you're down to 2.
That's right.
And if Oregon and Washington both leave too, because they've been begging the Big Ten, right? Colorado could be the most talented team on the West Coast. And then who's laughing? Right? So I wouldn't really... It's not like he's going to Auburn and he's looking up at Alabama and Georgia and A&M and LSU and Oklahoma. No. He could be in the top right away. So that's my thing when I'm looking at him. Like, I think people are underestimating, or I guess overestimating, the Pac-12 and underestimating him. Let's see what else. Anything else for college? I know we kind of went on college like the whole time, but
no.
Special tribute show. NFL has been on my nerves anyway, dude, because my fantasy team lost the championship last night for the regular season because of Stevenson's birdie little ankle. I don't know how. I agree with Jerry Rice. Why are coaches running their best guy up the middle? What are you doing? Belichick. Patricia. Is it Patricia, their offensive coordinator?
Yeah, he was their defensive coordinator. Now he just gets like a notepad of plays and goes, here, we're going to call this.
What an idiot. Your number one running back, Damian Harrison, is hurt, right? So you only have one running back, Stevenson. He's your entire team. He's catching the ball. He's like your best receiver and running back, and you decide, we need to run up the middle with this guy. Rolls his ankle, tries to come back. I give him credit for that. And he got me 2 points. He got me closer, but then he had to go back in. And then they had to run like a rookie running back that has never run before. And Jerry Rice called out Shanahan for the same thing with the Niners. Like, why are you running Deebo Samuel up the middle? I think what we need, Matt, is a comeback to the big-time fullback. They need a guy like Mike Allstott to eat those carries up, or Derrick Henry even.
There you go.
Because I think a lot of the teams now, you have these flex guys that can catch out of the backfield. Why not just go back to split running backs? I've said it before. Do shotgun. Have your power running back there. Have your pass catching running back there. You can fake to either one. Do you need a tight end, Matt? Because if you have that other power running back, he can double as a fullback and be the lead blocker on that lead run.
That's the way. I think that's the way some teams are using it. Is they're using him as a like H-back tight end type player.
Yeah, but like, what's the point of running your best guy up the middle 100 times for 1 yard? Like, I see it with the Tennessee right now, and I've been watching a lot of Derrick Henry. He's my number one guy, right? And if he's able to lead our team to a championship in fantasy, I'll be really pumped. But their play calling is atrocious. Like, Derrick Henry's in the I formation on first down. There's a 60% chance he's plowing right behind the center for a 1 yard gain. And I'm like, why? What are you doing that? And then after 2 runs, I look, Matt, his stat line the other day was like 9 carries for 18 yards or something, because they were all just him running into the center 15 times, or however many times I said it was. He was averaging like 2 yards a carry. And then next thing you know, they get him on a screen out of the backfield and he picks up like 70 yards or something. And then it opens things up. Then they're like giving him the ball outside the tackle, like on counters and shit. And he breaks like 90 yards. It's like, what are you doing the first half of the game? You're going to get him hurt again. He hurt his foot last year, broke his foot doing that stupid stuff. Like, I just don't understand why teams don't mix it up early. And then with some of your running backs, like if your star running back is hurt or your number one guy and you're running your third down back, in no scenario would I be running Stevenson up the middle. There's like no scenario that I would even need that, because the Patriots offense is so bad that they were bringing in that other like rookie. I don't even know what he is, a running back, receiver. He caught that screen and took it to the house last week. It's like, all right, bring that guy in the backfield and do like some jet sweeps or whatever, but also keep Stevenson's regular runs going. Like, don't just be pounding him up the middle because you decide, well, that's my offense. I need to pound some things in the middle to just keep it soft. Bring in a fullback then. And you can't tell me that there's not a fullback that would take the league minimum that's going to be able to get you that same 1 yard gain. There has to be. There has to be a guy. Right? It's like insanity. And it's not like it's Deebo Samuel too. Like, even if Jerry Rice, the GOAT wide receiver, not the GOAT football player, that's Tom Brady. Let's not get confused here. But if the wide receiver GOAT is saying this is dumb, he's not even the running back, he's the wide receiver, and you're running him up the middle, then I agree with him. That's my thing right there. Patricia, just retire. Why are you even in the game anymore? Belichick, was Tom Brady making the decisions for you when you were coach, when he was there?
Checked him out.
He's like, nah, I'm not going to run that play. Wonder how many times he did that. Because like Mac Jones on the sideline getting frustrated, and like I don't blame him, but I'm just like, I see all these injuries. How many injuries happened last night? There was 5 dudes injured in the first 2 minutes of that game. I don't know if you watched it, Matt. I turned it off after Stevenson got hurt. I couldn't take it. They ran a slant. Was it Parker? One of their receivers hit his head on a slant. Clearly fumbling around on the field, like walking around, not knowing where he is.
Yeah, it was Parker.
No one even stopped the game until the other receiver was calling for the team to come out and get him because he didn't know where the hell he was doing. He was just standing at the bottom of the screen, like looking lost. And I'm like, doesn't the league have a spotter? Is that all bullshit?
Yeah, they missed that one.
How do you miss it? Even the TV guys are saying something's wrong with him. It's like, yeah, he clearly has a concussion. And they were like, is that why he dropped the ball? They were so focused on him not making the catch. Like, who gives a shit? It's a 2-yard slant. Or was it a first down? I don't even know. But it was a slant. So it's not like he just had a 90-yard reception, right? Or like a touchdown play. It was like a 5-yard play. And they're so concerned about it that they didn't even check the guy out. It was clearly hurt. And then Murray gets hurt, which, was it the grass? I don't understand what side the players are on. Are they on the side of turf or grass?
They seem to be more on the grass side.
Well, wasn't that stadium grass last night?
Yeah.
Yeah, that doesn't look like it's better. Murray's knee still gave out towards ACL on non-contact too. So I don't know. NFL, I did want to bring up the playoff picture because I was looking to see, are any teams going to just compete? The Steelers right now, Matt, are 13th in the AFC. They're 5-8.
Hanging on by a thread.
How many games do they play? So if they win out, they'd be 9-6, right? Or 9-8, I mean. Isn't it one more game?
Yeah.
I'd have to believe that if a team can pull off 9-8, they're gonna make the playoffs. Although, right now New England would be in as the 7 seed at 7-6. So maybe a lot of these teams are beating up on a lot of the bottom feeders and not getting to that point. I don't know. But the Packers are the same 5-8. They would need the same scenario as the Steelers, right? They're 10th in the NFC. The Lions are like a game and a half behind because of a stupid tie, which the tie screwed another guy out of the championship in our fantasy league too. So I can't feel too bad. I was the number 1 point scorer all year. He was the number 2. He got a tie that screwed him out of it. So Stevenson hurt me and completely took me out of it. But even our number 2 guy didn't win it. So we'll see how it goes in the playoffs. But I figure looking at the Giants and they're being in the playoff because of a tie, if I'm like a Lions fan and you miss because of a tie, I feel like, how do you even go on being a Lions fan? I don't know, but I don't have anything else. The only team that's eliminated from the NFC is Chicago, and Denver and Houston are both eliminated from the AFC. That's my ending thought. I really don't have anything else to talk about. Is there anything you want to talk about?
No, that's all I have for tonight.
Yeah, again, shout out to Mike Leach. Prayers for his family. Has to be a shock to them. I mean, even if the guy's sick, you're always going to think like they're going to get it figured out. He has the best doctors.
Absolutely.
Not going to be a big deal. And then to just have it surprisingly, it's going to be crazy. But that's all. Thanks for listening. Go to southboundsports.com. Make sure you subscribe. And we will see you next week.